Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with some brand new Thrones of Britannia footage. I've put out a few videos in quick succession, so make sure you check the links in the description below to see some campaign gameplay as Vikings and Gaelic factions. In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the battles from my Circenn playthrough, an amphibious siege battle where the defenders hold the city and are reinforced by sea, outnumbering me, and with the advantage of walls and towers. Just a heads up that this is still an early build, so there might be some slight glitches here and there, and some polish is still missing as well, of course. With that said, a huge thanks to the folks at Creative Assembly who sent me early access so I could share this footage with you. Alright, this time we do not begin with talk of composition and deployment, instead we talk of weather conditions. Again, with historical games, you get to choose the ideal weather to fight in. I opt for dry weather because I've got a fair number of archers and I'd like to use some fire arrows against enemy ships. Now, taking a quick look at the city here, it's quite gorgeous. Again, each of these siege maps are unique, if I recall correctly, as was stated during a previous event, so it's absolutely gorgeous to sort of come across these different cities and see how different they look. Now, first things first, I'm just laying out my siege towers here, wanting to make sure I get some wide coverage, trying to stay relatively concentrated. The amphibious force that's coming in to reinforce the enemy is not going to be able to make landfall until the battle starts, because obviously the city is under siege, so they're probably going to come in from the beach to my right, though they might show up to the left instead. I don't really know where they're deploying, as you can see. I have no idea where the enemy is. I'm just preparing as best as I can to push in with those siege towers and then climb up afterwards as well. I've got my archers right behind them, the Highland Levy archers. They'll be relatively capable in causing morale damage, and of course that fire damage will be helpful as well. And my royal followers are actually a cavalry unit. They are my king's guard, so to speak. So I push them out front at first and decide to dismount them just so that they'll have a better chance of going through the gates. And then I decide that that's not the best place to keep their horses. Tuck them back here, get them off their horses, and then deploy them further up front. Now, they will have to run back to their horses if I tell them to get back onto them. So that's pretty neat. I like seeing that they actually have to make that gap and travel back and get on their horses if push comes to shove. As for my regular cavalry units, I just push them up front as well, hoping to poke a hole in the enemy gates. And as we start the battle, you can see there are plenty of ships to the right over there headed right towards me. First things first, though, I send my cavalry forward to again poke holes in the gates and send my siege towers in as well to try and get on the walls. And right up behind them, I contemplate sending the rest of my forces, but taking a look at how those ships are coming towards the beach to my right, I have to reconsider my options. Now, the advisor is giving me some tips about how to win. I can obviously ignore the advice he's giving me. I'm pretty well aware of what I'm supposed to do, so I send my general's followers over to mount up, and let's take a look at these ships as they come rowing their way through. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I've always loved what naval battles look like. So here they come, pushing right in towards the beach, and I obviously have to prepare myself. So I send some of my units off to the side. The ones that aren't pushing these siege towers are going to be pushed around side, and you can see over here the gatehouse as well is taking a fair bit of damage, while again back here, get my archers off to the side, get my swords ready on the beach, just in case these guys manage to sneak up on me. I don't want to suffer from any, rear charges, obviously, and I get those archers ready as well to fire away as those boats come closer. Meanwhile, you can see the siege towers from this nice little view here pushing towards the walls, while the gate has been opened so that enemy cavalry can push through. Meanwhile, fire arrows coming through as well, I think hoping to set my siege towers alight, but so far so good. While back here again, the elite melee cavalry, my royal followers, are mounting up. It's just nice to see these little animations and everything put in place, just hopping onto their horses, and now I'm able to order them around at full speed. I don't have to worry about them getting picked off or focused in and separated from their horses either, just preparing for that beach landing. Meanwhile, over here, these horses are starting to die off a little bit, but my cavalry is superior to Viking cavalry, and again, I'm glad to be holding this gate over here because I don't want that horsepower to come out and go chasing after my archers as I send them to fire away at some of these boats with their fire arrows. Again, the infantry is actually sent up a little bit. I just want to give them some room so the archers can fire away safely without being obstructed. And you can see here these guys are going to start taking a little bit of damage here and there. They are obviously clumped up. They're trying to land at the beach. I'm hoping to pick them off before they're actually able to. At the same time, you can see some of these siege towers have fallen behind, while these siege towers are just about to arrive at the walls, and the enemy is bracing for impact. So let's just watch in silence as we finally arrive at the walls over here. Always love this moment.
Shields up!
So out we come, shields are up, making sure that the archers aren't able to kill too many of our troops as we push in. Now I am able to put them into a shield wall formation, but I decide not to. I just want to charge in and chase after some of those Eastmen archers. The cavalry as well continues to slaughter enemy cavalry, while over here you can see these boats are trying to make safe landing off in the distance as well, pushing ever closer, and I'm focusing in on the enemy long axes, even though their javelins are able to fire away at some of my troops. Not too worried about that just yet. Over here, meanwhile, you can see we're still holding the line over here. Again, Eastmen scouts are weaker than my cavalry, so I'm not too worried about that, and back here these axes are being sent in against the archers as the Eastmen fighters are arriving to provide some support up front as well. And you can see over here the two siege towers are fumbling about a little bit. I think they got lost in the trees, they got slowed down by the trees. Really unfortunate, slowed down my advance, but back here these archers continue to fire away as the boats off in the distance slowly but surely making their way towards that beach. Again, those archers are able to fire from the boats, at least the javelins were able to fire from the boats. I'm not 100% sure about the archers, but I want to make sure they take damage before they land. And again, you can see me over here firing away at some of these axes before they arrive at the beach, and they're just slowly making their way over. And this is the harm of coming in with an amphibious route. You can obviously get picked off and cornered before you're able to make landfall. You can see now as I am being surrounded by these boats, I do pull some of my units around back, while over here you can see these guys epically sort of jumping off their boats here to try and get engaged in melee. So just hopping over and heading towards my front line of swords while I'm sending my spears around back so that my archers don't get flanked, obviously. Over here as well, the battle looks to be going in my favor. A lot of those archers are retreating. You can see my units are doing better than the enemy units basically across the board, while back here, again, we're getting into position. You can see my royal followers were able to charge in back here as well, just to get some extra damage in, that flanking damage, the morale damage, doing a lot of help, and you can see them sort of poking and prodding and taking down these Viking raiders as some of those fire arrows go through and cause a fair bit of morale damage at the cost of physical damage. Meanwhile, I've got my King's Blades pushing in for a flanking maneuver as well, while those long axes are the ideal target, hoping to shut everything down before it's able to push in and cause too much damage. And up front over here as well, you can see I finally have some of my levy units giving up on the fight, and these spears at the gates now, so far unnoticed by me, are starting to cause a little bit of damage to my cavalry, so I need to react and pull that cavalry back into safety. I think I noticed just now, or in a moment's time or so, I realized, wait a second, those are spears. That's not such a good idea for my cavalry, and I pull them back and hope to use them back here on the beaches. And you can see we are doing well as these guys are slowly pouring out of the boats. They don't have the same density and the same numbers to take care of me with. I do pull back my elite cavalry as the spears come off those boats. I need to keep my general safe, of course, and you can see all that fire arrow damage going in and scaring the Vikings off. And the cavalry as well from my elite general's unit is able to chase down some of those routing units, while up front over here my cavalry ended up getting stuck in combat, so I have to give them further orders, and you can see they've taken a fair bit of damage as they were fighting against spears. And as we know, rock, paper, scissors, spears, not so good for horses. Back here, meanwhile, the javelins of the enemy are being taken care of by my axes, and up front as well, these spears are not going to have a good time as I send in my axemen units. The cavalry now has pulled out. They've pulled away from the gates, and that's definitely a better call than staying engaged against spears, though I do have to be wary now of being flanked by those very same spears. I send my royal followers in, chasing after some javelins, while you can see these archers as well are firing into the sides of some of those Viking units, while this cavalry unit is sent in against these archers, getting a nice charge in there, just trying to eliminate these guys once and for all, hoping to cause a fair bit of damage. You can see that guy tumbling over, I think pretending to be dead, so my buddy there just keeps stabbing at him. And meanwhile, at the town itself, we are most certainly coming out on top. We have these guys falling back. I've got a unit of axe back there, and they can actually pull around into the capture point just in case things go sideways, but you can see these guys are routing across the board. They don't really want to stick around. I've got my elite cavalry as well chasing these guys down. Look at that exhausted Viking there trying to get away, but he's not going to have a good time over here. These guys just being completely destroyed, rode down. Feels absolutely fantastic. I love seeing little things like that. And over here as well, you can see these axes from the Vikings don't stand a chance as my axemen back there continue to push on towards the city center. Over here as well, I decide to pull my cavalry back into some safety, but overall, the enemy have begun routing. They've given up on the fight, and a glorious victory for my kingdom. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look at an interesting battle from my time playing Thrones of Britannia. There were a few more battles that were also pretty interesting, and even though they were on varied battlefields, I thought this might be of most interest to those of you who may have never played a historical Total War game. I also had a limited amount of time of what I could show you guys, so I hope I picked correctly. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below so I know what you're looking for in the future. Also, this battle was actually one of the only times I really felt like things might have gone wrong for me, so I thought it was more interesting as well. Make sure you check out the other Thrones of Britannia gameplay videos I've released today if you'd like to see some campaign gameplay instead. And as always, make sure you subscribe for more Total War content, a constant flow of news, battles, and campaigns.